Good morning, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calls for diversification of India-Russia trade. Speaking at Business Forum in Moscow, he says trade between the two nations has grown in recent years, but so too the trade deficit. Last day of the monsoon session of Indian Parliament today, Home Minister moves 3 key bills to the joint committee which aim to bring accountability into politics. Ramping up pressure on the US Central Bank, Trump calls for a Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to step down. Anantjeet Singh Naruka clinches gold medal for India at Asian Shooting Championship in Kazakhstan. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Russia's First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov attended the India-Russia Business Forum in Moscow. Minister Jaishankar appreciated the assessments and reports of various sectoral leaders regarding the deeper potential of economic ties between the two countries. He reiterated that an enduring strategic partnership must have a strong and sustainable economic component. In this context, the minister called on businesses of both sides to do more trade, contemplate more investments and joint ventures, and open new frontiers of economic cooperation.
In the last few years, we have experienced the impact of the COVID pandemic, of conflicts, of political and economic shifts, of new technologies, and also of trade volatility. Each was unique in itself, but together they hold some common lessons. One is the importance of dependable and steady partners. Another is the value of shorter and more secure supply chains. A third is the concern about over-dependence on a limited number of markets. A fourth are the vulnerabilities of being overexposed to a few suppliers. A fifth is the reliance on narrow connectivity and limited logistics, and perhaps most of all, the cost of insufficiently searching for new opportunities, partnerships, and domains.
Earlier, the minister addressed the 26th session of India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technical and Cultural Cooperation in Moscow. He stressed that India-Russia bilateral trade has grown rapidly over the last 4 years. However, he highlighted the major trade imbalance that has accompanied this growth. Minister Jaishankar said that while bilateral trade in goods has increased more than 5-fold, major trade imbalance that has accompanied the growth has increased about 9 times.
Last 4 years, Excellency, bilateral trade in goods has increased, as you have noted, from more 5-fold, from $13 billion in 2021 to $68 billion in 24-25, and it continues to grow. A major trade balance has accompanied the growth. It has increased from 6.6 billion to 58.9 billion, which is about 9 times.
As the Commission meeting was held in a complex geopolitical situation, Minister Jaishankar also made some suggestions to make the cooperation an even more efficient catalyst for deepening economic cooperation. Firstly, he said that there is a need for a creative and innovative approach. Second, continuously diversifying and expanding agenda through mutual consultations. These were the minister's suggestions. Third, setting quantifiable targets and specific timelines so that both sides can challenge themselves to achieve more and perhaps even surpass what they set out to do. Fourth, holding at least 2 inter-sessional meetings between the Commission sessions, besides a virtual mid-term review with all the co-chairs. Last but not the least, having a coordination mechanism between the Business Forum and the different working groups of the Commission Forum so that there is a two-way flow. Finally, as the two sides prepare for the annual Leaders Summit at the end of the year, Minister expressed confidence that the outcomes of this Commission meeting will further drive the time-tested India-Russia partnership. Another major development that came from Moscow on Wednesday was India and the Eurasian Economic Union signing the terms of reference in Moscow to launch negotiations on a free trade agreement. The Economic Union of 5 post-Soviet states located in Eurasia includes Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, and the Russian Federation. The terms of reference were signed by an additional secretary in India's Department of Commerce and the Deputy Director of Eurasian Economic Commission's Trade Policy Department. Earlier, the additional secretary, Ajay Badu, called on the minister in charge of trade, Andrei Slepinev. Both sides noted the growing trade turnover between India and EAEU, which stood at $69 billion last year, registering a 7% increase over 2023. With a combined GDP of $6.5 trillion, the proposed FTA is expected to expand market access for Indian exporters, support diversification into new sectors and geographies, enhance competitiveness against non-market economies, and deliver significant benefits to micro, small, and medium enterprises. Moving on, India has condemned Nepal's remarks on the resumption of trade between India and China through the Lipo Lake Pass, saying that such claims are unjustified and not based on historical facts and evidence. The Ministry of External Affairs, in a response to media query, has said, and I quote, "Our position in this regard has been consistent and clear. Border trade between India and China through Lipo Lake Pass had commenced in 1954, has been going on for decades. This trade has been disrupted in recent years due to COVID and other developments, and both sides have now agreed to resume it. As regards to territorial claims, our position remains that such claims are neither justified nor based on historical facts and evidence. Any unilateral, artificial enlargement of territorial claims is untenable. India remains open to constructive interaction with Nepal on resolving agreed outstanding boundary issues through dialogue and diplomacy." India on Wednesday rejected allegations made by Bangladesh's interim government that anti-Bangladesh activities were being carried out from Indian territory by members of the Awami League. Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal said New Delhi was not aware of any anti-Bangladesh activities by purported members of the Awami League in India or of any action that is contrary to Indian law. Jaiswal also emphasized that India does not permit political activities targeting other countries to be conducted from its soil, calling the claims made in the Bangladeshi press statement misplaced. Let's turn to the Parliament now. Both houses of Indian Parliament entered their last day of the monsoon session. In the Upper House, Union Home Minister Amit Shah to move the motion for reference of the Constitution 130th Amendment Bill 2025, the Government of Union Territories Amendment Bill 2025 and the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Amendment Bill 2025 to the Joint Committee. The bill further to amend the Constitution of India that resolves that 10 members of this House be nominated by Deputy Chairman to serve on the said Joint Committee. While the lower house of the Parliament to hold further a special discussion on India's first astronaut aboard the International Space Station, critical role of space program for Viksit Bharat, Developed India by 2047. And DD India correspondent Dibyendu Mondal joins us with more updates on Parliament. Dibyendu, first take us through the road ahead for the bills that seek to bring more accountability into politics, especially at the top leadership?
Well, Shubhendu, good morning. Yesterday, we saw when that 130th constitutional amendment bill was presented in the Lok Sabha, the kind of uproar and drama that unfolded on the floor of the House was unprecedented. And talking about what this bill entails, it is about accountability in politics. It is about decriminalizing politics, which has been a demand for a very, very long time. This bill primarily talks about the fact that if any sitting minister, chief minister, union council of ministers, as well as council of ministers from the states, as well as the prime minister, is involved in any cases of corruption or criminality and have been under custody of any agencies in this country, including the police, for more than 30 days, the 31st day would be automatically termed as their day of termination of that post. And also, and this bill also importantly mentions that once that person is out from the custody and has not been convicted, then that person can automatically resume that post if their party or if the government wants that. So therefore, this is freeing politics from criminal elements taking over, and this has been necessitated, of course, because of the fact that if you remember the case from Delhi, where Arvind Kejriwal, the former chief minister and the Aam Aadmi Party convener, was holding the post of chief minister for more than 6 months from within the Tihar jail when he was accused of corruption in various cases in Delhi, and because of which governance was affected in the national capital of Delhi. And we have also seen in several other states where the chief ministers or ministers have been arrested. For example, in Bengal, there have been several ministers who were arrested and kept in custody for various criminal charges and offences. They were still operating as ministers from within the prison. So therefore, to help a better governance and better functioning of the country, okay, and for accountability, this bill was brought in. But however, as we have been reporting since yesterday, this bill has now been referred to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. This committee will be constituted of members from all political parties, experts, and as well as members from both the houses of Parliament, which is the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. Today, Amit Shah will be moving that bill in the Rajya Sabha for referring it to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, which will also consist of members from the Rajya Sabha. Shubhendu.
Right, Dibyendu, and final day, last day of the monsoon session, what would you say have been the key takeaways? In brief, please.
Of course, the key takeaways was, of course, all the opposition protest, ruckus, disruption. But despite that, there were key bills that have already been passed in the parliament because the government was clear that the opposition cannot hold the house to ransom, and the government will conduct legislative businesses. And of course, it's the last day, it's a wrap. The monsoon session has seen key important bills. If I go to list out the bills, it'll be a long time. But I'll just conclude saying that it has been some business amidst uproar, ruckus, and a near washout of the monsoon session.
Right, Dibyendu, appreciate you joining us with those updates. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Israel advances plan to seize Gaza city, calls up tens and thousands of reservists while government considers new ceasefire proposal to pause the fighting. Texas GOP passes Trump-backed redistricting map aiming to flip 5 Democratic House seats. In the UK, electric train sets world record with 200-mile journey on single battery charge in super mode.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar.
It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Moving on to West Asia, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has approved a military plan for the conquest of Gaza City. It authorized the call-up of about 60,000 reservists, piling pressure on Hamas as mediators push for a ceasefire. Katz's approval of plans to conquer Gaza City came days after Hamas said it had accepted the latest proposal from the mediators for a ceasefire. Israel's Security Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Netanyahu, approved the plan to take over Gaza City in early August. The framework that Hamas had approved proposes an initial 60-day truce, a staggered hostage release, the freeing of some Palestinian prisoners, and provisions allowing for the entry of aid into Gaza. Israel and Hamas have held on-off indirect negotiations throughout the conflict, resulting in two short truces during which Israeli hostages were released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Of the 251 hostages taken during Hamas's October 23 attack that triggered the war, 49 are still in Gaza, including 27, Israeli military says, are dead. Meanwhile, Qatar, one of the mediators in the talks, said the latest proposal was almost identical to one earlier version agreed by Israel. Netanyahu has yet to publicly comment on the truce plan, but said last week that his country would accept an agreement in which all the hostages are released at once and according to the conditions for ending the war proposed by Israel. Israeli army spokesperson Efi Defrin announced that an operation to conquer Gaza City is already in progress. We will deepen the damage to Hamas in Gaza City, a stronghold of governmental and military terror of the terrorist organization. We will deepen the damage to the terror infrastructure above and below the ground and cut the population's dependence on Hamas. We are not waiting. We have begun the preliminary operations and initial stages of the attack on Gaza City, and IDF forces are already holding the outskirts of Gaza City. Moving on, US Vice President J.D. Vance, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and President Trump's senior advisor Stephen Miller visited the National Guard troops at the Union Station. An estimated 1,900 troops are being deployed in capital DC. More than half are coming from Republican-led states. Besides Union Station, they've mostly been spotted around downtown areas, including the National Mall and DC metro stops. The Republican governors of Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee agreed to deploy troops to Washington days after the Republican governors of West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio also did so at Trump administration's request. On August 8th, federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, began patrolling parts of Washington, D.C. Days later, on August 11th, President Trump declared a crime emergency under Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, which temporarily placed the city's Metropolitan Police under federal authority. The Justice Department has opened an investigation into whether the city manipulated its statistics to make crime rates appear lower. Texas legislators have passed a new state congressional map drawn at the behest of United States President Donald Trump to flip 5 Democratic-held U.S. House seats in the next year's midterm elections. On Wednesday evening, legislators in the Republican-controlled Texas House of Representatives gave initial approval to the map, though Democratic lawmakers noted during the session that the map was not made available during public hearings. Republican legislators have undertaken a rare mid-decade redistricting to help Trump improve their party's odds of preserving its narrow U.S. House of Representatives majority. The bill to redraw the map passed by a 88-52 vote along the party lines. Once the Texas House and Senate have agreed on a version, it will go to Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, who has said he will sign it. Meanwhile, Democratic state representatives in Texas said on Wednesday their fight against a new congressional map backed by President Trump will continue in the courts. Representative Jean Wu, who chairs the Democratic caucus, criticized Republicans for their tactics and said they provided the absolute best evidence for their own corruption. Representative Nicole Collier urged her colleagues to push until we take over this country.
What the courts are looking for are the irregularities. This is not a normal process. They're trying to do something sneaky, and this is very obviously that. And they have laid that out as clearly as they could for the courts. We didn't have to do that. The Republicans themselves provided the absolute best evidence for their own corruption.
U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announced the first major overhaul of her office since its creation, slashing personnel by more than 40% by October 1st and saving more than $700 million per year. The Trump administration has sought to shrink the federal bureaucracy and has made sweeping cuts to a number of agencies. Gabbard's announcement also comes as she accuses former intelligence officials and others of involvement in what she says was a manufactured and politicized assessment that Russia sought to influence the 2016 presidential vote in U.S. President Trump's favor. In the United States, at least 600 employees of Center for Disease Control and Prevention are receiving permanent termination notices in the wake of recent court decision that protected some CDC employees from layoffs. According to the American Federation of Government Employees, which represents more than 2,000 dues-paying members at the CDC, the notices went out this week. Many people have not yet received them. The permanent cuts include about 100 people who worked in violence prevention. The terminations come months after Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced efforts to let go of 20,000 employees, downsizing the department by more than 20%. In other news, the US and Venezuela appear to be heading towards a standoff, with neither country indicating a willingness to back down, as US is deploying 3 warships off the coast of Venezuela as part of efforts to curb drug trafficking. The deployment comes as the Trump administration steps up pressure on Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, doubling its bounty to $50 million earlier this month on drug charges. The 3 Aegis-class guided missile destroyers are heading to the waters of Venezuela. American media reported Washington was also planning to send 4,000 Marines to the region. Washington, which does not recognize Maduro's past 2 election victories, accuses him of leading the cartel La Sos, this cartel of the Suns, cocaine trafficking gang. Meanwhile, Venezuela's Maduro slammed U.S. military deployment in the Caribbean as threat to regional peace and violation of international law. Speaking at the summit, Maduro accused U.S. of using anti-drug operations as a pretext for intervention and falsely linking Venezuela to terrorism. The summit, which regional leaders in attendance issued a joint statement rejecting U.S. military presence and calling for respect for sovereignty. Maduro demanded an immediate end to military threats and adherence to the UN Charter. On to Russia-Ukraine conflict. US Vice President J.D. Vance has said European countries will have to take the lion's share of the financial burden for Ukraine's security guarantees. Responding to a question by a news channel, Vance said United States should not have to pay for any future security guarantees for Ukraine. He also said he did not think it should be necessary to work out all the details of Russia-Ukraine peace agreement before arranging a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Ukraine wants to know that it's not going to get invaded again by Russia. It wants to know that it's got territorial integrity long into the future. The Russians want certain pieces of territory, most of which they've occupied, but some of which they haven't. So that is really where the meat of the negotiation is. The Ukrainians want security guarantees. The Russians want a certain amount of territory. Again, we finally got the details. We're working on them, but we haven't figured everything out. And I don't think that we should force, we shouldn't say that they can't sit down until you've figured out every little detail. Sometimes them sitting down is what facilitates figuring out those details.
A federal judge on Wednesday rejected the Trump administration's request to unseal grand jury transcripts from the criminal case against sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. District Judge Richard Berman said that the government had failed to prove there were any special circumstances that would justify releasing what are normally secret records. The Justice Department has been seeking the release of grand jury transcripts. Berman noted government holds a trove of Epstein investigation materials that it promised in February it would release to the public before abruptly announcing in July that it would not do so. The judge also said unsealing the grand jury proceedings could pose possible threats to the safety and privacy of Epstein's more than 1,000 victims. Berman's ruling comes a little over a week after another federal judge declined to release the grand jury transcripts in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell, the only former Epstein associate to have been convicted of criminal charges in connection with his activities. Brazilian police called the former President Jair Bolsonaro and his son Eduardo to be charged with obstruction of justice for attempting to interfere with the ex-leader's trial over plotting an attempted coup. In a report released on Wednesday, the police accused Bolsonaro and his US-based son Eduardo of engaging in conduct intended to interfere with criminal proceedings. The police also revealed that Bolsonaro, who faces 40 years in prison if convicted, had plans to seek asylum in Argentina last year. Brazil's Supreme Court will begin deciding on September 2nd on the coup attempt charges against Bolsonaro. The police recommended charging the pair with coercion in the judicial process and abolition of democratic law. The police also recommended the charges for two Bolsonaro allies, evangelical pastor Silas Malafaia and Paulo Figueiredo, the grandson of ex-president João Figueiredo. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Mexican authorities have arrested 13 people linked to the killing of two top Mexico City officials in May. The attack was carried out by gunmen on motorbikes. Investigators state that victims may have been targeted because of their official roles. Evidence connects the suspects to drug trafficking, vehicle theft, and organized crime. The incident has renewed concerns about safety in Mexico City. An overcrowded bus carrying Afghans expelled from Iran crashed in western Afghanistan, and at least 79 people were killed, with 17 children among the deceased. Head of the information department for Herat's provincial government said the crash on the Herat-Kabul highway involved a motorcycle, a truck and a bus late on Tuesday. The bus was carrying Afghan refugees expelled from Iran, part of an exodus of hundreds of thousands of people who were on their way from the border to Kabul. A battery-powered electric train has set a new world record for the longest travel between 200 miles between Readings, London and Oxford. The 200-mile record was achieved operating in super mode, traveling at speeds of 30 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour and without heating. The train has 6 batteries using a hybrid chemistry. Sweden's landmark Kiruna Church has arrived at its new location in Kiruna's brand new city centre. The 113-year-old church, one of the country's largest wooden structures and often voted its most beautiful, had to be moved 5 kilometers in order to make way for the expansion of the world's largest underground iron ore mine. The next phase of the project involves stabilizing and permanently placing the church on the new foundations at the new site and restoring the surrounding areas. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Significant step towards self-reliance in India's coal sector. 13th round of commercial coal mine auctions today in New Delhi. Rana Samvad, the tri-service seminar of the armed forces, to take place in the days ahead. India and Nepal inaugurate 2 bridges in Koshi province to boost post-flood connectivity. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calls for diversification of India-Russia trade. Speaking at Business Forum in Moscow, says trade between the two nations have grown in recent year, but so too the trade deficit. Last day of the monsoon session of Indian Parliament today, Home Minister moves 3 key bills to the Joint Committee which aim to bring accountability into politics. Ramping up pressure on the US Central Bank, Trump calls for a Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to step down. And Anantjeet Singh Naruka clinches gold medal for India at Asian Shooting Championship in Kazakhstan. Former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe, who was previously under house arrest, made his first public appearance in Sabaneta a day after being granted freedom. A Colombian appeals court ruled on Tuesday that the country's former president must be released from the house arrest while he challenges his conviction for bribery and witness tampering. The Conservative leader was sentenced on August 1st to 12 years of house arrest for threatening and trying to flip witnesses who had spoken to investigators about his alleged role in the formation of a right-wing paramilitary group in the 1990s. Argentina's lower house of Congress on Wednesday voted to overturn President Javier Milei's bitterly contested veto of a law increasing disability allowances. The law, which was approved by the Congress in July, improves the healthcare benefits of people with disabilities and also provides for them to receive a pension. It also reinstates state hiring quotas of 4% for people with disabilities, which the Milei administration has ignored. The veto now goes before the Senate, where a 2/3 majority is needed to bury it. The Libertarian Milei, who took office in December of 2023, vetoed the law, saying it was to uphold his promise to erase Argentina's long-standing budget deficit. Waorani indigenous people marched in Quito on Wednesday demanding the Ecuadorian government respect their territorial rights and honor a popular vote to limit oil drilling in the Amazon's Yasuni National Park. Protesters, including women and community leaders, gathered outside the Constitutional Court, singing traditional songs and holding signs. The president of the Waorani nation, Juan Bay, said the government had ignored their demands for 2 years and called for international attention to their struggle. The Waorani have long opposed oil extraction in Yasuni, home to isolated indigenous groups and vital biodiversity. Peruvian police showcased 1.5 metric tons of cocaine that were confiscated during 4 separate operations across 3 regions of Europe on Wednesday. The head of the anti-drug unit stated that the operations took place in January, March, May and August across central regions of Puno, Ayacucho and Tacna. The operation ended on August 16th with 10 people arrested who belong to criminal organizations Gambito and Centurion. The gangs had been operating in Peru since the beginning of 2025. Most of their members have already been arrested. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un commended the heroic efforts of the North Korean troops who fought alongside Russian forces in the war against Ukraine. During a meeting with officers from the Army's overseas operations, Kim expressed deep appreciation for their role. Earlier, Kim paid tribute to North Korean soldiers killed during the war with Ukraine, covering their coffins with flags and resting his hands on them. North Korea has already dispatched over 10,000 troops to support Russia's military operations and is reportedly preparing for an additional deployment. The South Asia Health and Humanity Summit 2025 was held in Nepal's capital city, Kathmandu. The theme focused on beyond the aid crisis, shared responsibilities in a fractured international order. The summit, attended by over 180 participants, focused on the worsening global humanitarian and healthcare crisis, with panels highlighting the breakdown of legal and ethical protections for medical care, especially in conflict areas. The summit comes to light as major US funding to Nepal adversely affected running projects after Trump's global aid cuts. India and Nepal on Wednesday jointly inaugurated two bridges built under grant assistance from New Delhi in Koshi province. Ambassador of India to Nepal, Naveen Srivastava, and Nepalese Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Transport, Devendra Dahal, jointly handed over a 48.8-meter span modular bridge over Puva Khola River in Elam district in Koshi province. In the aftermath of the September 2024 floods in Nepal, India provided 10 prefabricated steel bridges to Nepal under grant for rebuilding critical road infrastructure disrupted by flood and bolstering connectivity. In another significant step towards enhancing transparency, competition and self-reliance in India's coal sector, Ministry of Coal will launch the 13th round of commercial coal mine auctions today in New Delhi. The development assumes significance as the government seeks to ramp up coal production and ensure sufficient supply of the dry fuel to meet the growing energy demand of the country. The auction has witnessed robust participation from both established and new industry players in every round. Mines are on offer on most liberal terms, promoting ease of doing business and attracting investments from diverse set of stakeholders. Launched in 2020 under leadership of Prime Minister Modi, the commercial auction framework has transformed the coal sector by fostering transparency, driving competition and increasing coal availability for domestic industries, thereby reducing dependence on imports. In a major boost to India's defence sector, intermediate-range ballistic missile Agni-5 was successfully test-fired on Wednesday. The testing took place from the integrated test range in Chandipur, Odisha. The launch validated all operational and technical parameters. It was carried out under the aegis of Strategic Forces Command. The impact of technology on warfare, that is the theme of Ran Samvad, the tri-service seminar of the armed forces to be held later this month at the Army War College in Mau. Only the practitioners of war, that is the uniformed armed forces personnel, will be the speakers, though think tanks, academia, veterans and even civilians will be attending and giving their views and feedback. The Ran Samvad will be an annual fixture from this year onwards.
We will focus purely on war, warfare and war fighting. We will attempt to arrive from the seminar with practical takeaways and doables so that we see whatever technologies are impacting our day-to-day war fighting capability and the way we do business. How do we incorporate that into our training, into our tactics, techniques, procedures, into our organizational structures, so that whatever technological influx is happening into the Indian Armed Forces, how do we best use it to our advantage?
We, in the ancient times, were a Vishwaguru. We want India to lead the debate on this strategic dialogue of future wars. We want to reclaim that spot of Vishwaguru, and that is the intent behind behind the commencement of this dialogue called Ran Samvad. An exchange of concepts, best practices, innovative approach, and a platform for serving officers to present their views at fighting future battles is what we are wanting to achieve.
The annual Kailash Yatra has commenced in Jammu and Kashmir's Padarwa with spiritual fervour and heightened safety measures. Limited participation was allowed this year as a precaution following recent cloudburst and inclement weather. Medical teams, tents, firewood and security personnel have been deployed along the route to support the pilgrims. The pilgrimage devoted to the local deity Vasuki Nag involves trek to Kailash Kund, a lake located at an altitude of about 14,000 feet. Let's now turn to weather updates from across the globe. First up, from India, after days of being battered by heavy rains that triggered waterlogging, traffic and air and rail disruptions, likely relief for Mumbaikars. The India Met Department has said that rainfall intensity is expected to reduce in Mumbai from today. However, the Weather Department has issued a yellow alert for Mumbai, predicting heavy rains in some isolated places. The Met Department has also issued a red colour warning for extremely heavy rains over Karnataka, Gujarat, Konkan and Goa. The weather agency has forecast heavy to very heavy rains over Chhattisgarh, Kerala and Telangana. IMD further said heavy rains are also expected to prevail over northeast India, including coastal Andhra Pradesh, East Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Gilgit-Baltistan, Muzaffarabad. IMD also highlighted that monsoon is likely to be in an active phase over South Peninsula and adjoining central India during the next 3 to 4 days. Hurricane Erin, churning north in the Atlantic hundreds of miles offshore, is expected to trigger a dangerous storm surge in tropical storm conditions on Wednesday along North Carolina's Outer Banks and other stretches of U.S. East Coast. The National Hurricane Center warned that roads in the low-lying barrier islands may become impassable, with waves as high as 20 feet crashing ashore. It added that heavy surf is likely to result in significant beach erosion and warned beachgoers along much of the east coast to avoid the waters due to dangerous surf and rip currents. The video captured high waves pounded the shore and flood waters surrounding homes in Buxton on Cape Hatteras National Seashore on Tuesday. Meanwhile, satellite images on Wednesday showed the eye of Hurricane Erin, a Category 2 storm swirling over the Atlantic Ocean. It was expected to pass between the U.S. East Coast and Bermuda on Wednesday and Thursday, keeping its strongest winds offshore. Erin, the fifth named storm and the first hurricane of 2025 Atlantic season, strengthened to a Category 5, the first Atlantic storm to reach this level since Hurricane Milton in October last year. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Air Canada to resume flights after 4-day flight attendant strike strands many passengers. Kashmir to hold first Khelo India Water Sports Festival from 21st to 23rd August. Santa Teresa transformed into open-air gallery as Urban Art Festival brought hues of color to Rio.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative. From current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order, DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India. India's voice to the world.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse. Is the United States China's debt trap strategy? Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth unadulterated and pure of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. US President Donald Trump on Wednesday called on Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to resign, intensifying his efforts to gain influence over the central bank. Trump's latest remarks aimed at reshaping the makeup of the US central bank, a body designed to set benchmark interest rates independent of White House influence. US Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pearl alleged in a post on X earlier on Wednesday that Cook had designated a condo in Atlanta as her primary residence after taking a loan on a home in Michigan. Pearl asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate, and Trump quickly amplified the allegation. Trump has repeatedly blasted Fed Chair Jerome Powell over benchmark rates that he wants sharply reduced. Trump can name a new chair when Powell's term ends in May, but claiming a majority on the board may take more time. Powell could continue serving as the governor until 2028, near the end of Trump's term. Until Powell's departure, Trump has only one other seat to fill, vacated recently by the surprise resignation of former Governor Adriana Kugler. Earlier this month, Trump nominated Council of Economic Advisers Chairman Stephen Moran to serve out the rest of her term. Air Canada is set to resume its flight services on Wednesday after nearly 4-day strike by its unionized flight attendants left more than 500,000 passengers stranded. Aircraft remain parked on the tarmac. Departure boards showed widespread delays amid ongoing strike disruptions at Toronto Pearson International Airport, leaving many passengers stranded. Earlier on Tuesday, the flight attendants union and the airline reached a tentative deal. The union said unpaid work was over. Flight attendants had walked off the job on Saturday after contract talks with airline collapsed. They had pushed for compensation for duties such as boarding passengers. At its annual Made by Google event, tech giant Alphabet's Google introduced a fresh lineup of Pixel smartphones and gadgets, intensifying efforts to embed artificial intelligence across a wide ecosystem of products. The event held in New York showcased the Pixel 10, Pixel 10 Pro, Pixel 10 Pro XL, and the foldable Pixel 10 Pro Fold, alongside updates to the Pixel Watch 4 and Pixel Buds 2a. Google also introduced Pixel Snap compatible accessories, including chargers, cases, and stands. The launch marked a return to more modest upgrades compared to last year's bolder showcase, with a clear focus on integrating AI across its product systems. The 17th NADA Auto Show 2025 is currently held in Brikoti Mandap in Kathmandu. The show will run until August 24th, drawing significant interest from car and bike enthusiasts. The event hosts more than 100 brands displaying two-wheelers, four-wheelers, and commercial vehicles, along with numerous stalls offering wide range of auto parts and accessories. A highlight of this year's show is the focus on electric vehicles, with a special pavilion for new models and technology, along with exciting innovations like flying car, robotic dog, and humanoid robots. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for all the action from sports. Olympian Anantjeet Singh Naruka won India's first gold medal in the skeet event at the Asian Shooting Championship in Kazakhstan. The shotgun shooter scored 57 points out of possible 60 in a tense final to finish above Mansoor al-Rashidi of Kuwait in Shemkhan City. The bronze medal went to Qatari shooter Ali Ahmad al-Ishaq. This was also Naruka's first ever individual gold at the tournament. Meanwhile, Saurabh Chaudhary and Suruchi won the bronze medal in the 10-meter Competition, air pistol mixed team event. The Indian duo beat Chinese Taipei, Liu Hangyu and Si Xiangshan in their bronze medal match. China beat Republic of South Korea to win the gold. India have so far won 6 medals, including 1 gold, 1 silver and 4 bronze. Tapasya Gehlawat claimed India's first gold at the Under-20 World Wrestling Championship in Bulgaria. Tapasya bet Felicitas Domijiva of Norway 5-2 in the women's 57 kg weight class finals. She had started her campaign with victory against Dolzon Shingerba in the first round. Tapasya then pinned France's Ramesa El Kharoubi in the quarterfinals before staving off a tough challenge from Japan's Sowaka Ushida in the semi-finals. Meanwhile, India's Shrishti took home the silver in the women's 68 kg category after losing the finals. Kashmir's crown jewel, the Dal Lake, is set to take centre stage as it will host the first ever Khelo India Water Sports Festival from 21st to 23rd August. This landmark event marks Dal Lake's debut as venue for the national level water sports, with over 400 athletes from 36 states and union territories set to compete in rowing, kayaking and canoeing, organised jointly by the Sports Authority of India and Jammu and Kashmir Sports Council. The festival showcases the Sports Ministry's growing commitment to turning Jammu and Kashmir into premier sports destination. This inaugural Water Sports Carnival is part of larger vision under Khelo Bharat initiative, which aims to expand India's sporting footprint from traditional stadia to unique natural landscapes.
यहाँ पे खेलो इंडिया फर्स्ट अवर वाटर स्पोर्ट्स के लिए जोर शोर पे चल रही है। बच्चे यहाँ आए हैं, बच्चे अभी यहाँ पे प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं क्योंकि कल से उनके मेन इवेंट शुरू है। कल हमारी ओपनिंग सेरेमनी है। हमारे बच्चों के लिए बहुत अच्छा मौका है बिकॉज ऑल ओवर इंडिया से जो बेस्ट एथलीट्स है, नेशनल इंटरनेशनल एथलीट्स है, वो इनको खेलते देखेंगे, इनसे वो इंस्पिरेशन ले लेंगे और उनको भी पता लगेगा कि नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे कॉम्पिटिशन क्या है।
Reigning javelin throw world champion Neeraj Chopra has opted to skip the Brussels Diamond League in Belgium on Friday. Brussels edition will be the 4th and final Diamond League meeting this year to feature the men's javelin throw event. The two-time Olympic medalist has already secured spot in the Diamond League final in Zurich, having collected 15 points from his 2 appearances this season. The men's javelin throw final, which will decide the 2025 Diamond League champion, is scheduled on 28th of August. Fluminense goalkeeper Fabio overtook Englishman Peter Shilton's long-standing record for the most competitive appearances in men's soccer. Fabio played his 1,391st match during his side's 2-0 victory over America de Cali. He made the switch to Cruzeiro to Fluminense in 2022. 44-year-old Brazilian has enjoyed a professional career spanning 28 years. Former England goalkeeper Shilton, who played between 1966 and 1997, was acknowledged as the record holder for the most competitive men's professional games. Rio de Janeiro's historic Santa Teresa neighborhood has burst into color as over 50 artists turn its walls into canvases during the second edition of Urban Art Festival. The event has transformed the area into city's largest open-air gallery, inviting locals and tourists to stroll through the vibrant murals and graffiti. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code and download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.